Good evening and welcome to Autumn Tales for the Family. My name is Mark Livingood, Director of the Story Center at Mid-Continent Public Library. This is the first program in a series of 3 storytelling performances intended to celebrate the season. We'd like to thank the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation for their support of this series and look for additional programs on Tuesday, October 6th, Tuesday, October 29th, and for more information about these programs, as well as other programs for the Story Center, check out our website at www.mystorycenter.org. It's my pleasure to introduce tonight's featured teller, Fran Stallings. Fran has performed at national and international storytelling festivals, in schools and libraries, and on the radio. She performs primarily folk tales from around the world, and her style is known for its ability to entrance listeners. She has conducted workshops and residencies across the nation, as well as in Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Egypt. Welcome, Fran, and thank you for being here to help us kick off Autumn Tales.
I'm so happy to be here. Autumn is my favorite season. Here in Northeast Oklahoma, it's a relief to be done with the hot, humid summer that we get. And in autumn, the air clears, it's mild, it's dry, the sky is a beautiful deep blue. Really a welcome change of season. Now, of course, the days get shorter and the nights get longer, and that's what signals to the plants and the animals that winter is going to be coming and they better prepare for it. The change of season is something that we look for. And one of the things we noticed, for instance, this afternoon, I saw some monarch butterflies heading south, and other animals that migrate, water birds, ducks, and geese. I've heard the Canada geese practicing. You know, they fly in a kind of a V, well, I'm confused on my screen, a kind of a V-shaped formation. They take turns being the leader, and that makes it easier to fly long distances. And I've got a story for you to start off with that's about a pair of Canada geese that were migrating south with their flock. They were a mated pair that had been together for years, the goose and the gander. And they took their turns flying in the V formation, heading south. And one night, you know, they fly at night when they migrate. One night, the flock flew into a cloud. Oh, it got thicker and thicker. And by the time some light was coming into the sky and the goose and gander looked around, they were all by themselves. Where was the rest of the flock? What were they going to do? Well, they looked down and there was a pretty little pond down below. And they decided, well, at least if we go down there, we can spend the day. And then in the evening, we can start back on our migration. We know which way south is. And we'll just go on and find the flock later. So they circled down, and they landed in the pond, and they were immediately met by a turtle who swam up to them. Oh, hello, guests. I'm so happy to have guests. You know, this is a beautiful little pond. Why don't you stay here forever? You could stay here forever. You could be my friends. I'm so lonely. There's nobody else here. Whenever someone comes to visit, I talk to them. I tell them all, look at the flowers, look at the grass, look at this beautiful clean water, such a beautiful pond. Why don't they stay here? But they don't stay very long. Like I mentioned, the goose and gander had been a mated pair for a long time, so they just kind of exchanged looks. They knew why nobody wanted to stay around with such a talkative turtle. The turtle went on and on about the beauties of the pond, how they were welcome to stay. But when they finally got a little break in the conversation, the gander said, sorry, we can't stay. We're just here to spend the night. We're migrating south. The turtle said, South, I've heard about the South. I've heard it doesn't get cold there in the winter. I've heard there's good stuff to eat, fruits, and there's flowers, and there's grass, and oh, how wonderful. Oh, you are so lucky you are going south. I wish I could go south. I envy you so much. When they got another break in the conversation. The goose and the gander had been looking at each other, and one of them, I'm not sure which, said, "You know, we could take you with us." The turtle said, "Oh, I can't go. I'm not a bird. You're birds. You have wings. I'm just a little turtle. I've just got little short legs. I couldn't possibly walk. I can't fly." And they said, "But we can carry you." "Carry you? How? You've got web feet. You don't have claws like a raptor that could hold on to me. And you can't use your wings to hold me. You need those to fly. How can you?" They said, "In the evening when we're ready to take off again, we'll get a long, strong stick. And one of us will hold on to each end of the stick, and then you can bite on to the middle because we think you have a very strong jaw." Oh yes, I exercise my jaw all the time. Even if there's nobody here, I practice talking and on and on. Oh, the turtle was so excited all day long while the geese were trying to sleep. The turtle talked and talked about going south and how wonderful it was going to be and how warm and the food. And even the turtle began thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be the first and only flying turtle. Oh, this is so exciting." Well, finally, as the sun was setting, as it was beginning to get dark, the geese came to the pond and they had that long, strong stick. They grabbed it in their beaks. Turtle held on tight. And one of them said, "Now, be careful. Don't let go because that's what's holding on to you." And so Turtle said, "I can do it." And up they flew, carrying the stick with the turtle, hanging on by biting onto the stick. Well, they flew over the grass around the pond, and there were some rabbits down there who were eating their supper. And they looked up and they said, "What's that? What's that? What are those geese carrying? Did they find an old boot in the pond?" Turtle thought, "Don't they know I'm a famous flying turtle?" But Turtle didn't dare say anything out loud. They flew over the woods, and down below there were some deer who were out for their supper. And they looked up and they thought, my goodness, what did the geese find in the pond? It looks like a big clump of mud and grass." And Turtle thought, "No, it's a famous flying turtle. I'm going to be going south." They flew over Lee Lake, which is a nice park near here. They flew over the lake, and the kids who were just finishing soccer practice and packing up to go home, they looked up and they said, "Hey, look at that, those birds. What have they got? Is that a sack of garbage they're carrying?" And when Turtle heard that, he couldn't stand it. Turtle said, "No, I'm Turtle!" Turtle hit the paved walking trail that goes around Lee Lake. The geese circled down and they dropped the stick and they came over to see Turtle. "Turtle, are you all right?" Well, Turtle had crawled away. Paved path was at the edge of Lee Lake. "I busted my shell in a dozen places." "Oh dear," said the geese, and they used their big webbed feet to scoop up mud and plaster it over Turtle's shell. They said, "Now, Turtle, let this dry, and it'll be like the plaster cast that humans put onto a broken leg or broken arm, and it'll hold your shell in place while it heals." So they left Turtle there. All Turtle could do, Turtle said, "I guess I'm not going south with you. Goodbye." And Turtle crawled into the muddy bank of Lee Lake, and that's where he spent the winter. Well, the geese went south. They found the rest of their flock, and they had a lovely winter down there. And when they came back, they passed over Lee Lake, and there was the turtle swimming around, washed off the mud after the shell healed, but you could still see the cracks. And the geese said, "Next time, remember to keep your mouth shut." And the turtle said, "No, thanks. I don't think I'll try flying again." So that's a story about Canada geese and a turtle who wanted to fly. That's a traditional story. Different versions of that are told all over the world. It's really fun to check them out and see different birds, of course, different kinds of turtles, and different places to go if they're not actually on migration. Maybe they're going somewhere else, and different motives for the turtle to want to open his mouth to say bye-bye, or are we there yet, or something like that. I've got some source citation information I can post in the comment at the end of the program. Well, migration is one of the features of the change in seasons. And another, of course, is harvest time. Those of you who have gardens or fruit trees in your yard, you know it's a lot of work. You do the preparation and the planting, and you take care of the plants, and then when it's harvest time, the work isn't over. You got to gather it all. You got to bring it in. You got to fix it up so you can store it and keep it. So I was very intrigued when I found a story from the Hmong people who live in the mountains of Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. They live in those mountains, and they're excellent farmers. And they tell a story that explains why farmers have so much work to do in order to bring in all of that harvest. The story says that a long time ago, out in the mountains, there were farmers who enjoyed this season of planting and gathering and harvest, because in those days, well, you had to prepare the ground, plant the crops, take care of the crops, but then your work was over because the crops would harvest themselves. They would come walking down the mountain and knock on the farm. Mama, Papa, we've come home. Show us where we should sleep. How about that? Did all the harvesting themselves. Boy, that sounded good to me. I read the story to learn what happened and why it doesn't work that way anymore. The story says that there was a farmer who was hardworking, but he enjoyed naps. He liked to take it easy when he could. Every few years, he'd have to start a new place to make his fields, because you see, they didn't have valleys with big fields that you could plow. They would go up in the hills, cut down the trees, cut down the bamboo, cut down the vines, cut down the weeds, pile it up, burn it when it was dry, and then they could plant their corn and rice and so forth. They'd come back occasionally to chop out the weeds, but they didn't have to do any more work because the plants would harvest themselves and come home. Well, this farmer, he went up, he cleared a patch, cut and burned, and then he planted corn and rice. And then he was tired. He went home, he lay down, and he took a nap. And he napped, and he napped. Well, while he was napping, the rain fell, and the sun shone down, and the corn and rice began to grow up, but so did the weeds all around. And the weeds said, "Who are you? Get out of here. This is our place." But the corn and rice said, "No, our farmer cleared this. This is our place now. Go away. Don't bother us." And the weeds, corn and rice, they began to fight, and the baby leaves hit against each other. And the corn and rice said, no, our farmer's going to come. He's going to take care of us. You better go away. Didn't you see how he cut down everything else? You better be afraid. But the weeds just kept bothering them. Finally, some of the corn and rice, they went down the hill to the farmer's house. They said, Papa, you got to come take care of us. The weeds are choking us. The weeds are being mean to us. And the farmer, oh yeah, well, tell him I'll come next week. You go back, tell him I'm coming, but I need another week of rest. So the corn and rice went back up the hill, back up to the field. They said to the weeds, "You better leave us alone. The farmer's going to come." Well, the next day, a tiger was seen in the forest. And the weeds said, "Is that your farmer?" And the corn and rice looked, and they said, "Well, no, it has yellow stripes and a long tail. Our farmer doesn't have a long tail." The next day, a bobcat was seen in the weeds. Is that your farmer? No, he's got a short tail, but our farmer doesn't have yellow and black stripes. He just wears black clothes and a big felt hat. And each day, when they saw something in the woods, whether it was a wolf or a rat or even a chicken in the woods, the weeds were nervous and they said, is that your farmer? And the corn and rice had to admit, no, it wasn't. But finally, on the seventh day, the farmer came and he had his big cultivating knife and he slashed at the weeds and the bamboos and the vines. And the corn and rice said, oh, thank you, Papa. Thank you. Now we can grow. You just go home, take it easy, but make us some places to sleep for the winter. Make us baskets and boxes and storehouses. So the farmer went back down the hill, but he just went to bed and slept. He did not make any containers for the grains. When they were ripe, the corn and the rice harvested themselves and sifted off the chaff, and they came walking down the mountain, knocked on the door. Mama and Papa, we're home. Now, show us where we should sleep. The farmer woke up. I didn't make any place for you. And the corn and the rice were so angry. They said, well, if that's how it's going to be, we're not going to come down the mountain anymore. You're going to have to go up and get us. And they went back up the mountain. And ever since then, crops have not harvested themselves. People have to do the work of picking and peeling and cleaning and so forth if we want a harvest for the winter. That's the story from the Hmong people. And when we were in Seattle, we went to the public market and some Hmong people had made a picture cloth of the story. See, they illustrated it by sewing in threads on this cloth. And can you see the farmer dressed in black she has a colorful apron. And you see the corn walking down the hill. That's a big white radish or something. Different plants coming down the hill. But you see the bamboo growing up and how he had to chop at it in order to clear a spot. So that's a story from the Hmong people. Well, something else that I like about this time of year is Halloween. And one of the things you think of at Halloween is jack-o'-lanterns. Now, have you ever carved a jack-o'-lantern? You get a pumpkin and you open up the top and you scoop out all that gucky stuff inside. Sometimes you can save the seeds and roast them. And then you carve it. And then you put a candle inside and it lights up from the inside. And you can use it for Halloween decorations. Well, this is a story about a pumpkin. But this pumpkin was so big, I don't think I'd use it for Halloween. This story was so big, so enormous, so gigantic, so humongous that it even had a name. Its name was Figba, which means big thing. But of course, it didn't start out as a great big pumpkin. It started out as a little seed. Now, did you save a seed the last time you carved a jack-o'-lantern? Reach behind your ear. You might be able to find one. Big kids and grown-ups, this is a story especially for the younger kids. And so it's a story you might want to come along with because there might be a time when you'll have occasion to tell it yourself. Here's a little seed. And of course, what you do with the seed is you plant it. You have to dig a hole, put in the seed, cover it up. What does the seed need to grow? Water, of course. So you get a great big thing of water and glug, 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 pour that water on. What else does it need? Sunshine. So shine the sun, pretend to shine the sun on the seed. And sure enough, you can show how the seed would grow into a little plant. A little plant that grows out and vines around until there's a flower. And a bee has to come to the flower. That's why we're so important to have bees. And where the flower was, it wilted, and there was just a little baby green pumpkin, just a little one. But it grew bigger, and it grew bigger, and it grew bigger, and bigger, and bigger, and bigger, and bigger, and bigger, and bigger. And it turned yellow, and it turned orange, and it turned into Figba. That means big thing. Well, Figba was sitting happily in the pumpkin patch, sitting on a pumpkin hill, when along came the little kid who had planted the seed. Mama said, go in the garden, see if there's a pumpkin ripe, and then we can have pumpkin pie, pumpkin cookies, pumpkin soup, pumpkin bread. Oh boy. And the kid came walking into the garden and saw Figba. Oh my goodness, what a big pumpkin. Oh my goodness, that pumpkin is so big. That pumpkin would make 100 pies, 100 pots of pumpkin soup. And wait a minute. You can't pick the pumpkin unless it's ripe, and the way to tell is to knock on it. So let's knock on the side of Figba very gently 3 times, okay? Beep, beep, beep. Figba felt that. Figba said, hey, don't do that. It tickles. And the kid said, did I hear a pumpkin talk? Nah, pumpkins don't talk. Nah. Okay, let's knock on that pumpkin a little harder. You ready? 3 times. Bap, bap, bap. And Figba said, hey, kid, go away. You bother me. Leave me alone. Kid said, did I hear a pumpkin talk? Nah, pumpkins don't talk. Let's knock 3 times really hard, okay? Bonk, bonk, bonk. And Figba got so angry. Figba rocked back and forth, broke loose from the vine, came rolling down the pumpkin hill after the kid. And the kid went running barefoot out of the garden. You could pat your knees to make the running sound. And Figba, roll along with me, Figba rolled after the kid. Well, the kid went out of the garden and into the woods nearby and said, trees, please help me. There's a giant pumpkin rolling out after me. Please move. And the trees, you can wave your branches gently in the wind. The tree said, oh, a very polite child said, please, we will move. And they pulled up their roots and moved over. And the kid went running right through, and the trees moved back. Well, along came Figba, rolling, did not say please, rolled right over those trees and made them flatter than paper. And the kid kept running. And Figba kept on rolling. Well, the kid ran along the path to town, and there was a herd of pigs on their way to town. And the kid said, pigs, please move out of the way and let me through. There's a giant pumpkin rolling after me. And the pigs said, for a polite child, said, please, we will move. And they moved out of the way. And the kid ran on through, and the pigs got back in the path. But along came the pumpkin rolling and made those pigs flatter than bacon. And the kid kept running, ran right into the town. The pumpkin kept rolling after. In town, the kid said, houses, you're so close together. Please move out of the way and let me go through. There's a giant pumpkin rolling after me in the houses. You make a roof over your head. The houses said, Very polite child said, please, we will move. And the houses moved over. The kid ran on through and the houses moved back. Along came Figba, rolling, did not say please, rolled over the houses and made them flatter than matchsticks. And the kid kept running. And Figba kept rolling. The kid ran out into the country again, and there was a herd of cows in the field. And the kid said, cows, cows, please help me. There's a giant pumpkin rolling after me. And the cows, moo. The cows said, what a polite child. We will help. Get in the middle of the herd. We'll make a circle around with our horns pointing out, and we will protect you. So the kid went in the middle of the herd, and the cows circled around. Along came Figba, rolling, did not say please, rolled up to those cows, but they caught Figba on their horns and tossed that giant pumpkin up in the air, where Figba rolled over several times and came down and broke into 2 pieces. And the big piece went up in the sky and made the big orange sun. And the smaller piece went up in the sky and made the orange moon. Have you ever seen the moon when there's dust or smoke in the air? It really does look orange. And the seeds went up in the sky and they became the stars. So it must be a true story, huh? What do you think? That's the story of the giant pumpkin. It first was told by people in Upper Volta. That's the old name for a country in Africa. And the story has been passed down by storytellers ever since. Well, I think, let me see what time we have. I've got time for just one tiny story about a young man traveling in the country in the fall, enjoying the beautiful weather. And he sat down under an oak tree to admire the field below, which was full of ripe pumpkins. And he thought, you know, that's funny. Usually nature makes a lot of sense, but why put those big, heavy pumpkins on vines that are so weak they can't even lift the pumpkin off the ground? The pumpkins should be put on a big, strong tree like this oak tree. Just then, a little wind blew, and an acorn fell down and bip, landed on his head. Oh, he said, I'm glad that wasn't a pumpkin. I guess things are just as good as they are. So here are stories about fall migration, about harvesting, about the wonderful vegetables and things that we have in the fall. I hope you'll be enjoying all those things. Go to the farmer's market and get some of that good stuff. I've enjoyed telling these stories to you. They're all old folk tales, and you can retell them yourself or act them out or however you want to play around with them. And I'll be happy to stay on for a while and answer questions or look at your comments if you have any. And I think Mark is going to put up the comment screen so that I can see if you had any things to say. Okay.
Thanks so much, Fran. That was terrific.
Well, I hope we had some people who are ready to enjoy the fall. We had a cool spell, and now we have a last view of summer before it's going to get really cold again. So I hope you can enjoy it.
It's been a beautiful fall day and evening here in Kansas City. So anybody have any questions for Fran? Please feel free to type them into the comments, and we will ask them of her.
Aha. And if I can get a partial screen again, I'll be able to access there we go. And I'll be able to, there. I have the notes about where the stories came from. Let's see. And I'll just put that into the comment line, I guess. See how this comment thing works. Where do I put the comments? How does that work? Maybe we need to tell people how to do the comments, because this is different from what I'm used to.
I have a question here if you want to answer that while we're working on it, and we can certainly make the sources available.
Sure.
Ken asks, how do you learn to tell stories?
You listen very carefully when people tell stories, and you soak them up. I learned storytelling by listening to my folks tell stories, and then I had a chance to tell stories to younger brothers and sister, and I found as many stories as I could to keep them occupied. Listen, and then pass it on in your own words without memorizing. That's, before stories could be written down. We're so lucky to have books now, but before stories could be written down, that was the only way that stories were preserved, by people listening. Trying to see.
Do you tell some of the same stories that your parents told?
I tell some of the stories I remember hearing, yes. The one about the Brazilian beetle and the one about Shingebis and the North Wind, those are stories I've been telling for a long time, and they were ones that I heard from them. How does the comment line work? I can't picture where to. Okay, maybe in here. There. Okay.
Let's see. Okay.
Okay, it's all sort of mushed together, but there you are.
I will send this out.
Are there any other questions or comments? I hope people will enjoy this beautiful autumn weather, and you have more autumn stories in.
Yes, we will have next week on Tuesday the 6th. Rosie Cutler will be telling 6:30 to 7 p.m. And then Mary Schmidt will be the featured teller on October 27th. So those are the two next programs for Autumn Tales for the Family.
Very good. Very good.
I have another question, a couple of questions for you, Fran. One from Rosie. Will you be doing any other online programs?
I'm going to be in a Halloween scary stories show that River and Prairie Story Weavers are putting on. And let me see. Well, I'd have to go find my calendar. But I've been doing online storytelling in the local elementary school every week. We have some classes meeting in person and some are virtual, and I tell stories, and then the teachers find ways to follow them up with activities that involve retelling the stories, acting them out, making puppets, drawing pictures, including math and science that they find in the story somehow, which always amazes me, but they do.
And people can find out more about you and what you have planned at your website.
Yes.
And another question is, did you go to the library when you were a child?
Oh, yes, indeed. The library was a very important part of our lives. We had a lot of books in the house, but we went to the library as often as we could. And there's even a family story about our father's mother, our grandma, who was an immigrant and had to learn English when she came over as a child, got to go to school for just a couple years before she had to drop out after like second grade. But by then she had a library card and she educated herself by reading library books. And so we kids were always scolded if we complained that a teacher wasn't doing a good job of teaching us. Mama Ida always said, so it's in a book, you can learn it. Now it's online.
Another question from Stephanie. I'm new to storytelling. Do you write any originals?
I certainly do. I have some original family stories, and my academic training actually was as a biologist. And so I write some stories that are intended to help teach about science and about the environment. And if you go to my website and look for, I guess it says Earth-Teller Tales, there are about 40 different columns that I've written that connect folk tales and original stories with some science background. And those are out there for people to use.
Mm-hmm. Terrific.
Good questions. Right. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Fran, for kicking off Autumn Tales for the Family. Great to have you here. And thank you, everybody, for taking part of this beautiful fall evening to be here. And we look forward to seeing you here again.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night and enjoy your evening.